Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So the life and pastimes of Srila Madhavendra Puri, they come from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. So we'll be speaking about both of those, from both of those respectively. And within both of these pastimes, each of these chapters, each of these narrations begin with, of course, the wonderful Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to our Sri Gaura Chandra, our Mahaprabhu, our Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose appearance day is coming. All glories to Lord Nityananda, the savior of all the devotees. All glories to Advaita Chandra. All glories to Advaita Prabhu, on whose call our Mahaprabhu decided to advent himself. And all glories to all of the groups, the illustrious groups of devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Madhavendra Puri is described as a sannyasi coming in the line of Madhvacharya. And we spoke about this briefly in our last meeting, where we spoke about Sri Ishwara Puri, the illustrious disciple of Madhavendra Puri, who then goes on to become the guru of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So Madhavendra Puri comes in the line of Madhvacharya. And Madhvacharya had received a benediction, even though he lived centuries before Mahaprabhu. He received a benediction from Mahaprabhu himself, where Mahaprabhu appeared to him in a wonderful vision and said, I will give you the benediction, I will come and I will take initiation within your line. You have such love for me, such love for Radha Krishna, that I personally will come and I will take initiation in your line. Fulfilling this, of course, we see that he takes initiation from Sri Ishwara Puri and reveals the chanting of the Maha Mantra. He inaugurates the Sankirtan movement in that line, but only after he's taken initiation. So Madhavendra Puri, our scene begins. He is a disciple of Sri Lakshmipati Tirtha. He has great love for Shri Radha Krishna. He is within the line of Vaishnavas. But usually these Vaishnavas worship Lakshmi Narayan. So Madhavendra Puri, having a unique established relationship with Sri Krishna Chandra in Vrindavan, he feels a little despondent. He feels as though he doesn't have anyone to talk to. He doesn't have anyone with whom he can relish the pastimes and the glories of Sri Krishna as Shyam Sundar in Vrindavan, the beloved friend of everyone. No longer the maintainer and creator of all the universes and all the worlds, but just a cowherd boy, sweetly performing pastimes for the pleasure of all of his friends. So in great despondence, Madhavendra Puri travels. And he travels throughout many, many lands. We hear that he even meets with Sri Nityananda Ram. And when Sri Nityananda Ram meets with Madhavendra Puri, he immediately embraces him They offer obeisances to one another. They begin to cry. They have all the ecstatic symptoms. They are shuddering in ecstasy. They can't believe that they've met one another. This is the best moment of Madhavendra Puri's existence. Of course, meeting that personality who's none other than Sri Balaram himself. Meeting Balabhadra, the very brother of Sri Krishna. What could be better than this? They spend many days in each other's association, speaking about the glories of Sri Krishna. And Madhavendra Puri is so happy, but they understand that they have to part ways. Sri Nityananda Prabhu continues on his pilgrimage, journeying throughout all the holy places within India for so many years before meeting up with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. While he waits, everyone is waiting for Mahaprabhu to begin his Sankirtan movement. They part ways. Before even the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Madhavendra Puri travels and he travels and he travels and he comes to Shantipur. And as he comes to Shantipur, he comes upon Advaita Acharya. And Advaita Acharya immediately accepts Madhavendra Puri as his very own spiritual master. Advaita Acharya and Madhavendra Puri become so incredibly close. Now Madhavendra Puri has what he has always wished for. He wished that he would have an associate with whom he could speak about the glories of Krishna and the pastimes of Radha Krishna. Now he has Advaita Acharya. So they speak and they speak and they speak. They have so many wonderful talks. They have prasad together. They spend many, many days together. Madhavendra Puri does have to go and travel on. So he does continue on his travels. Now, after the disappearance of Madhavendra Puri, which is being celebrated tomorrow, which is why we are embarking on this wonderful glorification of this wonderfully unique individual and his life of cooperative service. This is one of the biggest lessons for me within the life of Madhavendra Puri was his life of cooperative devotional service. He is so extraordinary. And his devotional service is so extraordinary that it garners chapters within Chaitanya Bhagavat and within Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So after his disappearance, Advaita Acharya would celebrate the tithis of the appearance and disappearance of Srila Madhavendra Puri with such extravagance, such pomp and circumstance. This is how he would celebrate his spiritual master. So we also can gain a view of how we can celebrate our spiritual master and celebrate other devotees. We can celebrate the great Vaishnavas with such incredible pomp and circumstance. On one of these festive occasions where Advaita Acharya was performing such worship, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu happened to be at the residence of Advaita Acharya within Shantipur. So now we are setting the scene for our wonderful narration of pastimes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has arrived in Shantipur. He has come to the house of Advaita, and Advaita is engaged in preparing for the great celebration of Srila Madhavendra Puri. Whenever Nimai, Vishwambar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even though now he is a sannyasi, whenever he was in Shantipur, all of the devotees of the surrounding area would come to that area just to be reunited with him. They would feel as though their very lives had returned, but one very special person would always arrive on the scene. Shachimata, the mother of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, would arrive whenever he was in Shantipur. And so she quickly gathers her attendants, She gathers those who help her within the household and she runs to Shantipur. She heads there. So when she arrives in Shantipur, she sees her son, and her son offers obeisances to her. He often circumambulates his mother, and he speaks and he says, "You have given me love of Krishna because you have given me my very life. I owe everything to you." And in response, all of the devotees would say the same. They owe everything to Shachi Mata because she has given life to Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. On this day, Sachi Mata says, as she often would, "Please, may I take up the responsibility of cooking. I want to cook everything for this festival because I just want to feed my dearest Nimai. Please let me take up the responsibility of cooking." And so Advaita Acharya would happily concede that responsibility to her. And not only she would engage in cooking, but she would engage and employ so many devotees in cooking. So she would head up the task. Now she's going to cook for this wonderful festival. Can we even imagine the glorious preparations that Sachi Mata would make? Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat says there were so many innumerable preparations cooked that they cannot even name all of them. They can't even put a name to how many innumerable preparations were cooked. She knows her son loves shak, green leafy vegetables. So she would cook them in so many different ways, sometimes 10 different ways. Just cooking this one green leafy vegetable in 10 different kinds of ways. Sometimes putting it in ghee, sometimes putting it in milk, sometimes with so many different preparations. With this spice, with that spice, 10 different ways. She would make milk sweets. They would engage in making preparations of puris. They would make so many different kinds of rice, which dangerous to speak about on Ekadashi. But we can engage in feasting through the ears. Madhavendra Puri would often, and we'll hear about this later, he would drink the nectar of the holy name, so much so that he would forget about hunger and thirst. So we can pray to Srila Madhavendra Puri that he gives us just a portion of his potency, so that as we engage in hearing about these dangerous prasadam pastimes on this Ekadashi, we can somehow be free from all of the hunger and thirst just by engaging and hearing the pastimes and the nectar of these holy names. So there would be so many different preparations. Mahaprabhu was so intrigued that he wound up walking through the house of Advaita Acharya, looking at all of these different preparations. Chaitanya Bhagavat says there were storerooms and storerooms of rice. So many storerooms filled with rice and grains for cooking. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would look and he would be so astonished. Look at what this Advaita Acharya has. He's just a Brahmin. He doesn't have a day job. He preaches Krishna consciousness and he worships his Madan Gopal. He worships his Shalagram. He worships his deities and he preaches, and that's it. But somehow, all of the devotees hearing that Advaita Acharya is performing this wonderful celebration, they would bring loads and loads and loads of preparations. So much bhoga and vegetables and fruits and ghee and milk. So many things they would bring that it would fill up the storehouses both inside and outside Advaita Acharya's house. Mahaprabhu was so astounded by watching all of this that it leads him to proclaim within the pages of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, this Advaita Acharya must be none other than Lord Shiva himself. Who else would be able to have such renunciation and such wealth all at the same time? He must be none other than than Lord Shiva. Anyone who understands this understands my nature and his nature in full. Finally, they would call Mahaprabhu They would say, oh, my dear Gauranga Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Prasad is ready. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sit down with all of his associates, and he would sit with Lord Nityananda, with he and Nitai in the center. And all of the devotees would join. I laugh because I can see in the waiting room, it says Sita Thakurani has entered. Sita Thakurani being the wife of Advaita Acharya, I felt like it was so auspicious, such a wonderful, auspicious omen, right at that moment. Because she would also be engaged in cooking and serving. So Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda would sit in the center, and it says that their picture of sitting in the center with all of their associates surrounding them, taking prasadam, would exactly mirror an exact copy of what it would look like when Sri Krishna Balaram would have lunch with all of their gopas within Sri Vrindavan Dham. It was exactly the same. There was nothing missing. Vrindavan Dham would immediately become present in that place. And so it says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would begin eating. And he would relish each of these preparations. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written songs and songs about prasadam taking, and about how Mahaprabhu would individually praise each preparation. And because Mahaprabhu is fond of chanting the names of Sri Krishna, he would even name each preparation after a certain name of Sri Krishna. And within the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we hear Mahaprabhu would say, this shak is so wonderful that this shak is just like Acyuta, infallible like the Lord of the universe. And then he would relish the prasada. And he would go preparation after preparation, naming them after the Lord of his heart. So many different names. And all of the devotees would find such joy just glancing at the lotus face of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, looking at Nitai, and all of them engaging and taking prasadam together. But during this festival, Mahaprabhu, it says within Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, one really sweet line, in between mouthfuls, Mahaprabhu would then praise Srila Madhavendra Puri, and he would speak about his pastimes. How wonderful. We think about the Lord of the universe. His mouth is full with different preparations, and he would chew, and as he would swallow, and then sometimes, do you know, my friends, let's think about Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri was such a dear devotee that sometimes just walking along the streets, he would burst into transcendental ecstasy and we would begin dancing. And then he would eat some more. Oh, my friends, do you know Madhavendra Puri, just by seeing a cloud in the sky, dark and heavy with rain, he would immediately think of Sri Krishna and he would fall into ecstasy, sometimes fainting, sometimes singing, sometimes swaying. He would tell everyone he met about Krishna. He would yearn to speak the pastimes of Sri Krishna. He would yearn to associate with other devotees of Krishna. Do you know, my dear friends, my dear devotees, his devotional service is such that it would bind Krishna to him. His devotional service is such, his bhakti, his love for Sri Krishna is such that it would induce Sri Krishna to come and speak with him personally. Oh, my friends, do we know, do we remember the life and the pastimes of Srila Madhavendra Puri? And he would eat. And all of the devotees would eat, hearing the nectarian pastimes spoken from the very mouth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Now, not only is the Mahaprasad Mahaprasad, but now also these pastimes are Mahaprasad, infused and imbued with the potency of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then we hear about very many pastimes that Mahaprabhu himself, he would speak while on pilgrimage, but also during this great festival celebrating Madhavendra Puri. Oh, my friends, do you know, one day, Madhavendra Puri was journeying to Vrindavan. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always yearning for Vrindavan. So can we just imagine the scene? He is relishing the remnants of Krishna's Mahaprasad, speaking now about Vrindavan and his wonderful lotus eyes, which would often reach almost to his ears. That's how wide they were. They would close, relishing, just thinking about Vrindavan. Srila Madhavendra Puri was journeying toward Vrindavan. Forgetting everything else, he would sway and sing and dance on the streets. He would somehow find his way all the way to Vrindavan. After circumambulating Govardhan Hill, he winds up at Govinda Kund. And he takes his bath within the nectarian waters of Govinda Kund. Govinda Kund, where Lord Krishna himself was bathed after lifting Govardhan Hill. When the Lord puts the hill back down and Indra comes begging forgiveness, oh my Lord, what an incredible offense I have somehow committed. Please forgive me. Says that Sri Krishna would not even look at him. And so he brings along Surabhi. And Surabhi, along with all of her children, the other Surabhi cows who can fulfill all benedictions just with their milk. Wish-fulfilling cows. Surabhi says, oh my Lord, today you have given us shelter. You have saved our lives. You have given us all happiness, and therefore you are greater than Indra. You are our very own Indra, and thus we name you Govinda. Oh my Lord, please let us coronate you with a wonderful Pattabhishek, this coronation Abhishekam. And they perform the Abhishek of the Lord, and they coronate him as the king of the cows, Govinda. And this milk, it merges with the waters and becomes Govinda Kund. It is said that sometimes the waters of that place taste like milk. They become cloudy like milk. And sometimes, if you pay attention, you can taste that same milk which has bathed the body of Sri Govinda Dev. Madhavendra Puri takes his bath at Govinda Kund, and then he sits, meditating on the holy names of Sri Krishna, constantly chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And can we imagine when Mahaprabhu chants, relishing the nectarian prasad, speaking the glories of Madhavendra Puri and Sri Vrindavan Dham, how sweetly that Maha Mantra is chanted. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continues, oh my friends, Madhavendra Puri would never ask any food from anyone. He would simply gain food. Sometimes if someone happened to have some pity on him and would give him some food, then he would take, but if not, then he would simply fast. Sometimes he would drink some milk and sometimes not. And in this way, Madhavendra Puri did not think about his own bodily comfort at all. He simply sat chanting the holy names again and again and again until he was interrupted by a small voice. My dear sir, what are you doing? Madhavendra Puri opens his eyes, and in front of him is standing a boy with a beautiful turban, with red and gold and orange. Wonderful dhoti, silken, and a bright chadar. Beautiful ornaments and a wonderful complexion. Madhavendra Puri says, who are you? Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita describes this Gopa Balak. This little boy Gopa says, I am a Gopa, and I live here, within this village. In fact, my father is the king of this village, and here, no one fasts. Some people eat once a day. Some people eat sumptuously. But if one person is not eating at all, then I personally come and I supply them with everything they need to eat. Oh, Baba. Oh, what a nice sannyasi you are. I brought you some milk. Look, in a clay pot. I've just milked my cows for the evening. Please take this milk. Madhavendra Puri says, how did you know I was here? How did you know my name? How did you know I was fasting? This Gopa says, as I was going about my evening duties, the very many ladies who come here to take their water from Govindakund for their evening household chores, they told me there's one sannyasi sitting by this Govindakund. He looks as though he hasn't eaten anything, and he's engaged in chanting this Maha Mantra. And so I personally came to give you some milk. Madhavendra Puri is skeptical. What ladies? He hasn't seen anyone. But this Gopa is sure. No, they told me and I came. Here, take this milk. Drink it to your full satisfaction. I'll come back later to collect my pot. And all of a sudden, the boy leaves. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita says, indeed, he seemed to have vanished into thin air, never to be seen again. Madhavendra Puri looked. Where did that beautiful boy go? He decides to honor this milk that was given to him by this Gopa Balak, this young boy Gopa. And he drinks the milk, but he decides, he realizes that while that boy was speaking and he was hearing his speech, he wasn't hungry or thirsty at all. He had forgotten all hunger and thirst, no matter. But he honors the milk and he drinks it, and it is such ambrosial nectar. Feels like it can give him all immortality. He has regained his life. And he spends the rest of that evening glancing down the lane, wondering, when will that boy come back for his pot? He washes the clay pot in Govindakund and he sets it right next to him, but he keeps wondering, when will this boy return? Says all that night he couldn't sleep. And he continues chanting the Maha Mantra. But somehow during the midnight hours, he dozes. And while he dozes, he has a dream. In this dream, he is still in the same Govindakund, but he's standing, looking around, and all of a sudden, the young boy returns. Oh, you have returned, my dear Gopa. Oh, Baba, come with me. And this boy takes Madhavendra Puri by the hand. Come with me, I want to show you something. They travel through jungles, through bushes, through trees and forestry. Madhavendra Puri says, where are you taking me? This boy says, I must show you something extremely important, Baba, come with me. And he takes him to a very special place with a seemingly innocuous bush that looks like many of the other bushes. But under that bush is a gorgeous, beautiful deity. Madhavendra Puri says, my Lord, oh my Krishna, what is this? This boy says, this is a deity of Gopal. I am that very same Gopal, the lifter of Govardhan Hill. In fact, this very deity has been here on Govardhan Hill for so long. I've been staying in a bush, suffering from heat and cold and hunger. Now I am very, very hot and very hungry. Please, if you come, you can uncover me. You can reinstall me. In fact, I was installed by Vadra, the great grandson of Sri Krishna. But due to foreign invaders, the pujaris who were worshiping me hid me in this bush, and then they fled in fear of their lives. They did this to protect me. But now, I've been left abandoned. I was thinking for so many days, oh, when will Madhavendra Puri come and offer his service to me? Now, at this point, can we imagine how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, my dear devotees, just imagine the devotional service of Madhavendra Puri induces the Lord himself to think, oh, when will Madhavendra Puri come and offer his services unto me? Madhavendra Puri says, oh my Lord, what can I do? Tell me how to serve you. He says, gain the trust of the villagers. Gather them all together. Have them uncover me and install me on top of Govardhan Hill. For I am Gopal, that very lifter of Govardhan Hill. If you reinstall me and bathe me with lots and lots of cold water, I will be relieved from my heat. And then have a wonderful festival. Feed me loads of sumptuous prasadam, and I will be relieved from my hunger. In this way, you should offer me your puja and your devotional service for so many days. I've been yearning to see you. Here in Vrindavan, I am the authority. You can reestablish me as that authority. Madhavendra Puri says, my Lord, I will do so. I will do so. I will do so. And then he wakes up. This just goes to show dreams about the Supreme Lord are not imagination, nor are they false. In whatever form the Lord appears, he is always perfect, complete, transcendental, and fully manifested. So if we have ever had a dream about the Lord, he is there, fully present. We can be sure of that. Madhavendra Puri awakes. Oh, my Gopal has called me. Govardhan Dari has called me. He wakes up and calls all of the villagers. Oh, my dear villagers, please come from everywhere. The villagers say, what's happening? He says, I've had a dream. The lifter of Govardhan Hill, Gopal, is lying in a bush abandoned. We must find him, reinstate him, install him upon Govardhan Hill, and somehow reestablish his service. They say, well, let us go and get many people. Madhavendra Puri says, no, there's no time. All of you just get machetes, get knives and axes and choppers and come with me. We can uncover Gopal. He leads all of the villagers along the same path that Gopal took him, with his hand in Madhavendra Puri's, hand in hand. And they come to the bush, and all of the villagers are chopping through the forest. It says it takes a great amount of effort to go through the forestry that was grown all around this secluded area. Madhavendra Puri leads them to the place that he saw within his dream. And just think the amount of trust that they had within Madhavendra Puri. They didn't say, oh, you crazy Baba, you just had a dream. This can't be true. They understood Madhavendra Puri must have seen. So they trusted him. And they went through so many different places, and then they dug and they found the bush, and they said, oh my goodness, he's so large. How will we uncover him? They brought stones and they built a crude throne out of these stones to prop the deity up on. And then they chopped and they chopped and they dug and they dug and they pulled, and they said, oh, we must somehow uncover this deity. It took so many of them. And then finally they uncovered the deity of Gopal. Shri Govardhan Dari ki jai. All glories to the lifter of Govardhan Hill. The deity was so magnificent. A beautiful complexion. Even though he had been covered with dirt for so long and had been exposed to the elements for so long, it did not matter. His beauty remained. They began to reinstall this deity on top of Govardhan Hill. They brought hundreds of pots of cold water from Govindakund and surrounding areas. All of the villagers heard that Madhavendra Puri is reestablishing the service to Gopal, Govardhan Dari, and they came from all over Sri Vrindavan Dham. They sang songs. Krishna Govinda Govinda Gopal Nandala Govinda, Govinda, He Gopal Nandala. Krishna Govinda, Govinda, Gopal Nandala. Govinda, Govinda, He Gopal Nandala. They put the deity up on top of Govardhan Hill. They bathed him. First, it says that they massaged his body with so much oil so that he gained a glossy appearance. They bathed him. And then they massaged his body once again with oil so that he would gain another glossy appearance. And then, after they decorated him with jewels and ornaments brought by so many of the villagers, then they fed him. The amount of preparations that were made and brought by so many people were so numerous that it seemed to cover all of Govardhan Hill. For miles around, people brought all of the ghee, the grains, the rice, the many milk products. And so one village would come and they brought all of this, and in this way they performed the first Anakutta ceremony. And they said, all of the devotees said they felt like this same Govardhan Puja Anakut that was held when Sri Krishna was on the planet now feels as though it is being held again in the presence of Madhavendra Puri and in the presence of Gopal Govardhandari. They sang songs to him and they fed him sumptuously. They had some 15 Brahmins just preparing the cooked food. 10 Brahmins to cook rice, 5 Brahmins to cook vegetables, 5 or 6 men just to roll out chapatis and puris. So many people gathered together, and this is his life of cooperative devotional service. Can we imagine how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be relishing the cooperation of all of the devotees who came together to make that festival happen in honor of Madhavendra Puri? And then he speaks about how Madhavendra Puri took help from all of the villagers in the mood of cooperative devotional service. It's such a mirror. The same lesson. Look at what can happen when all of the devotees come together and cooperate. And Madhavendra Puri extended that cooperation. Yes, everyone come, give. Everyone come, become part of this celebration. That was just one day. The next day, another village would hear, oh, Gopal has come. Anakut has arrived. We can have a festival. Please, everyone, bring everything you own. Let us offer it all to Gopal. The next day, another village would come and say, we want to offer everything we have to Gopal. Madhavendra Puri would say, please come, please give everything. It says in this way, every day, for so many days, there was this anakut of innumerable preparations that would fill up Govardhan Hill. Every day, Gopal ate sumptuously. And because Gopal was so merciful to Madhavendra Puri, he would personally appear and eat everything. And then that prasadam would be distributed amongst all the devotees. No one was turned away, not the young, not the aged, not due to caste, creed, whatever it was. Madhavendra Puri would arrange for prasad for everyone. And Mahaprabhu would explain these pastimes while eating prasad in honor of Madhavendra Puri. For so many days this happened. Eventually, it says the people of Mathura, who were big businessmen, capitalists, they would come and they would offer their wealth. One Kshatriya came and built a magnificent temple on top of Govardhan Hill for this Gopal deity, which is now being worshipped within the Vallabhacharya line in Nathdwar. So, one Kshatriya came and built a magnificent temple. Some others came and they said, let us build the outer walls, the security walls. Some came and said, let us give wealth. And every person would give a cow. Every person who had a cow gave a cow. And in this way, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita says that Gopal became the maintainer of thousands of cows again. Sri Gopal Nandalal ki jai. So, in this way, the worship of Gopal went on for 2 years. Madhavendra Puri would initiate so many people into the worship of Vaishnava culture. Some Brahmins came from Bengal and he initiated them into the worship of Gopal. And in this way, he would continue worshiping Gopal both personally, but he would also extend that worship and that mercy to others. How merciful. One day, in yet another dream, Madhavendra Puri saw Gopal. Gopal said, "My dear Madhavendra Puri, I'm still hot. If you bring sandalwood from the Malaya hills, then I can be cooled down. Please bring sandalwood and camphor." Now he was in Vrindavan. The Malaya hills are all the way across near Jagannath Puri. This is akin to saying, if my Govindadev were to say to me, "Oh, Acyuta Gopi, I need special wood. Can you walk to California and bring me wood from the redwood trees?" Walk. Right? There's no planes or anything. He has to walk. Madhavendra Puri happily says, "Yes, my Lord, I'll do." He wakes up and he begins his journey. As he journeys south and across, like it's really akin to my Lord saying, "Walk from New York to California." How many of us would be ready and willing? I don't even know if I would be able. But Madhavendra Puri does it. So, on the way, he stops in Remuna. In fact, he stops in many places, but he stops in Remuna. And in Remuna, there's a very special deity of Gopinath. This deity of Gopinath is special, and I'll tell you briefly in 30 seconds why. One day, Sri Sita Ram were sitting together. Sri Ram says, "Oh, Devi, I have a very confidential secret to tell you. Soon I will appear in a new form, experiencing pastimes that I've never experienced before." She says, "What will this form look like, my Lord?" Wonderful. And Sri Ram, with one arrow, he takes a stone, and with the arrow, he carves a beautiful deity of Sri Krishna named Gopinath. Sri Krishna is bent in 3 places. Shri Shri Radha Murlidhara ki jai. Shri Gauda Chandra Mahaprabhu ki jai. Sri Ram carves the wonderful form of Sri Krishna, bent in 3 places, with holding a flute. Sita is so enamored that she worships this deity with all of her heart and soul, but they decide to leave that deity behind because she's becoming more in love with the deity than with Sri Ram. So they leave this deity behind. This deity is worshipped in Remuna, and this deity is known as Gopinath. Madhavendra Puri comes to this place and takes darshan of this Gopinath deity, falling down before him with all his heart and soul. And he meets the pujari, and he sees that they have wonderful, wonderful amounts of different kinds of preparations. He says, "Oh, you seem to be offering the best of everything. Please tell me, how is this possible?" The pujari says, "The best of everything is indeed offered to Gopinath, but the crowning glory is Gopinath's kheer, famous throughout all the lands. It is known as Amrita Keli. This milk, sweet rice preparation, this kheer, this cooked down milk is so special that no one else in the world has it. Only Gopinath." Madhavendra Puri thinks, this is so amazing. If I could just have a little bit of this kheer, I could prepare this kheer for my Gopal. The pujari says, "Well, it's time for me to offer this Amrita Keli. Please stay for the arti ceremony of Lord Gopinath." So Madhavendra Puri stays, but during the arti ceremony, he thinks, what have I done? I've desired to taste the food meant for Lord Gopinath. And it says in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, he begins to meditate on Lord Vishnu. Oh, Hari Hari, what did I do? After the arti ceremony, he leaves, feeling like a great offender for wanting to have tasted the food meant for Gopinath. The pujari comes, he says, where did that Brahmin go? No matter. I have to clean up everything, put the deities to rest. Goes and he cleans, puts Lord Gopinath to rest. And in that rest, he has a dream. Gopinath says, my dear pujari, wake up. There are usually 12 pots of Amritakeli offered to me, but you only removed 11 from the altar. If you check just behind my altar, I have hidden one pot of this Amritakeli. I've stolen it. That pot is meant for that one sannyasi, Madhavendra Puri. Please give that pot of kheer to him. The pujari wakes up. Oh, my Lord has come to me in a dream. Now remember what we said. The Lord is always transcendental, perfect, complete, manifested, and eternal. So whenever and wherever he appears, even in a dream, he is really fully present. My Lord has come to me. Let me go check and see what is behind the cloth in the deity room. Goes and he checks, and of course, there's that kheer. The pujari is astounded. He runs out now. It is a little late at night. He says, oh, who is Madhavendra Puri? Will that person known as Madhavendra Puri please come? I have the most wonderful thing to tell you. Gopinath is a thief. For you, he has stolen the most priceless kheer. He has stolen sweet rice for you. Please come. Oh, Madhavendra Puri, where are you? You are the most fortunate person in the whole universe. My Gopinath has shown his favor to you. The villagers hear and they call, who is Madhavendra Puri? Who is he? Who is he? Madhavendra Puri comes. I am Madhavendra Puri. He says, please take this pot. Gopinath has stolen this sweet rice for you. I don't know what exchange you had with him, but he asked me to give this to you. Please relish it with great happiness. Madhavendra Puri says, oh, my Lord, you are indeed the most worshipable. You are my Lord. How merciful are you to give your blessings on me. Madhavendra Puri honors that sweet rice, and from that day on, that Gopinath is known as Kheer Chor, one who has stolen kheer just for Madhavendra Puri. Forever, he changes his own name. Just for love of his devotee Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri says, this is such an astonishing pastime. After today, after hearing this wonderful pastime, the devotees will come. Many people will come. They will offer me respect. Better I leave this place. Madhavendra Puri was so humble that it says he was so afraid of this pratishta, pride. He was so afraid of reputation that he thought, better I leave immediately. But Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita says, for one who is famous for devotional service, even though he might run from reputation, reputation follows him like a shadow. And this reputation is transcendental. It travels with him throughout this life and into the next. So even though Madhavendra Puri thought, let me leave this place immediately, Sri Krishna's shadow of transcendental reputation did not leave him. He traveled, and each day he kept the earthen pot, the clay pot, and each day he would eat a small piece, reminding himself of the mercy of Gopinath. He reached the Malya Hills and he gets his sandalwood and camphor and governmental release papers. Because the analogy that I used about redwoods was actually appropriate. Right? It was very difficult to travel with sandalwood in those days. And in those days, it was ruled by so many different people. You get Muslim rulers, these rulers, that rulers in so many different areas. So you needed governmental release papers. The pujaris and the devotees supplied him with everything he needed to return back to Gopal. On the way, he stops back at Remuna and he takes darshan of Lord Gopinath again. He sees that pujari and that pujari hugs him. They spend many days in their company, and again, Madhavendra Puri has a dream. Gopal appears to him. He says, "My dear Madhavendra Puri, do you know I've already accepted the sandalwood that you've brought. My body is the same as Gopinath's body. If you smear all of the sandalwood on Gopinath's body, I will feel it. Please treat us as one and the same." Now, as a person who has a very particular affinity for a very special deity, I am not one often to think that all deities are the same this way. But this story has always been interesting to me, and how we can serve in separation. How we can serve Shri Radha Murlidhar and somehow see the magnificent form of Govinda Dev anyway. Madhavendra Puri was far away from his Gopal, but Gopal came, he said, "If you offer this service with all the love in your heart, I will accept it. There will be no differentiation. Trust me." But there's another reason why he says this. He knows that traveling throughout India at that time with this sandalwood and camphor would have been highly difficult, and it might have put Madhavendra Puri in danger. Knowing this, Gopal did not want his devotee to come into any difficulties. In fact, the sandalwood had already been confiscated once. But because of the governmental release papers, they gave it back. So he didn't want his devotee to be put into difficulty. So Gopal says, "Let me personally protect my devotee. You've made it to Remuna, now just offer it there, no problem." Now, the amount of sandalwood was something like 82 pounds of sandalwood that Madhavendra Puri traveled with. He's not a young man. Traveling with this burden of 82 pounds of sandalwood. Then Madhavendra Puri says, "Oh, bring many people to engage in the grinding of this sandalwood into pulp, and get people to engage into grinding the camphor and mixing it all. I will pay their salaries." Look at Madhavendra Puri. Look at his wonderful devotional service. He says, "I will personally arrange for their salaries. Don't worry. I will make sure that they are remunerated." So not only do they get transcendental benefit, but he would make sure that they were materially taken care of as well. This is the devotional service of Srila Madhavendra Puri. As they would grind, they would offer every day and cover the beautiful form of Gopinath. And finally, Gopal was saying, "I feel so cooled." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would often then at this point put the matter before Sri Nityananda Prabhu. "Oh Nitai, can you think of anyone more wonderful in their devotional service than Madhavendra Puri? There is no one more worshipable, more dear to me, more dear to Sri Krishna than Madhavendra Puri. This I know to be true." Can we even imagine anyone better? Within Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, within Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he would go into ecstasy thinking about Madhavendra Puri. He would then recite the verse, the famous verse that Madhavendra Puri would then recite from then on till the end of his life. "O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O my most beloved one, what shall I do now?" This is actually a verse of Srimati Radharani, but Madhavendra Puri would recite it till the end of his life. It was the crest jewel of his entire life. And Mahaprabhu would recite this verse again and again and again. And finally, he would engage in the kirtan. He would sometimes fall unconscious, but he would praise Madhavendra Puri in this way. This verse uncovered the door of ecstatic love, and when it was exhibited, all the servants saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing in ecstasy. Can we imagine now this great festival? He has finished the prasad. He wants to wash his hands and dance in ecstasy, just somehow praising his devotee. It is said Madhavendra Puri is a kalpa vriksha tree within Vrindavan, in a secluded, confidential place, always witnessing the pastimes of Sri Sri Radha Govinda Dev. It is said within the pages of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, one who hears this narration with faith and devotion attains the treasure of love of Godhead at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. And we know this must be true because if anyone can award devotional service, it is Madhavendra Puri. His devotional service is so great that it induced Sri Krishna Chandra to interact with him again and again and again. This is the greatness. Anyone who hears this narration with faith and devotion attains the treasure of love of God at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Sri Govinda Dev, Sri Sri Radha, Murlidhara. Srila Madhavendra Puri ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Sri Giridhari Gopal ki jai, Sri Govardhandari ki jai, Sri Kir Chor Gopinath ki jai. All glories to our Vaishnava Acharyas. All glories to all of you, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada, without whom we would not have these wonderful stories and these wonderful benedictions. All glories to Ekadashi Devi, giving us her blessings on her particular day. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Srimati Acyuta Gopi Devi ki jai. Thank you so much, Acyuta Gopi Mataji. Hare Krishna. Such a nectarian account of this pastime. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.